It is completely irrational to fear death. Let me explain. Now, to truly understand this claim, we must first take a journey back to ancient Greece, where we find a few important people, like this one guy you may have heard of before named Socrates. Socrates, the single most important philosophical figure of all time, is commonly attributed to the phrase, "All I know is that I know nothing." Now, although this isn't a direct translation, in Plato's Apology, Socrates lays the groundwork for this philosophical ideology. For some context, Apology is the retelling of Socrates' trial where he was found guilty of impiety and corrupting the youth of Athens with his Socratic questioning and dangerous philosophical ideas. Just as a side note, by the way, Apology is a bit of a misleading title for us today. It actually comes from the Greek word apologia, which means formal defense. Socrates' apology was far from him saying that he was sorry. Okay, back to the story. In his formal defense, Socrates claimed that he had been chosen by the oracle as the wisest man in Athens. Upon first hearing this, Socrates is quite confused, and so he decides to put this claim to the test by questioning politicians, poets, craftsmen, and all of the most important people of Athens. The topic of question was always centered around what these popular figures say that they knew best. And yes, by the way, this is where the famous Socratic questioning came about. Now, let's take a moment to point out the crucial fact that this was harmless questioning. At no point was Socrates trying to prove anyone wrong. He was simply testing to see if anyone could truly justify their beliefs. The thing is, no one could. Everyone that Socrates talked to claimed that they knew much more than they truly did. Socrates, on the other hand, he was wiser because he understood that he knew nothing. This leads us back to the original claim about why it is irrational to fear death. Socrates correctly states that no person can know what happens when we die. However, the majority of people are either afraid of death or have been at least one point in their life. Whether consciously or subconsciously, this fear comes from a false knowledge of the badness of death. We are afraid because we think that we know death is bad, but at the same time, no one truly knows what happens when we die. In the words of Socrates himself, no one knows whether death may not be the greatest of all blessings for a man, yet men fear it as if they knew that it is the greatest of all evils. So, Socrates concludes, fearing death is irrational because it is assuming false wisdom, the thing he had worked his entire life to upend. As stated by Socrates himself, to fear death is no other than to think oneself wise when one is not, to think one knows what one does not. After receiving the verdict that he will be sentenced to death, Socrates goes on to state two possibilities for what death may be. One, death is a dreamless sleep, or two, death is a migration of the soul. Now, you might be thinking that this seems a bit contradictory to everything he believed. Is he not saying it's impossible to know what death is? Anyways, here's what death is. Well, no, not really. Socrates is not asserting a truth by saying this. Rather, he is providing theories of death that are harmless and even peaceful. Theories that have just as much likelihood of being true as a death that is bad and painful. He does this to further prove how irrational it is to fear death. It is the fact that we cannot rationally assume any knowledge of what death is, coupled with the possibility of a harmless death, that Socrates says it is completely irrational to fear what awaits us on the other side of life. But I will leave you with this. Is it death that we fear, or is it leaving the comfort of a familiar life behind that is at the heart of our agitations? Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more. Thank you.